The Alfa Romeo 8C name was used on road, race and sports cars of the 1930s. The 8C means 8 cylinders, and originally referred to a straight 8-cylinder engine. The Vittorio Jano designed 8C was Alfa Romeo's primary racing engine from its introduction in 1931 to its retirement in 1939. In addition to the two-seater sports cars, it was used in the world's first genuine single-seat Grand Prix racing car, the Monoposto Tipo B P3 from 1932 onwards. In its later development it powered such vehicles as the twin-engined 1935 6.3-litre Bimotore, the 1935 3.8-litre Monoposto 8C35 Type C, and the Alfa Romeo 8C 2900B Mille Miglia Roadster. It also powered top-of-the-range coach-built production models. In 2004 Alfa Romeo revived the 8C name for a V8 engine concept car which has made it into production for 2007, the Alfa Romeo 8C Competizione. History: in 1924, Vittorio Jano created his first straight 8-cylinder engine for Alfa Romeo, the 1987 cc's P2, with common crankcase and 4-plated steel 2-cylinder blocks, which won the first world championship ever in 1925. Although it was a straight 8, the 8C designation was not used. The 8C engine, first entered at the 1931 Mille Miglia road race through Italy, had a common crankcase, now with 2 alloy 4-cylinder blocks, which also incorporated the heads. The bore and stroke were the same as the 6C 1750. There was no separate head, and no head gasket to fail, but this made valve maintenance more difficult. A central gear tower drove the overhead camshafts, superchargers and ancillaries. As far as production cars are concerned, the 8C engine powered 2 models, the 8C 2300 and the even more rare and expensive 8C 2900, bore increased to 68 mm and stroke to 100 mm. At the same time, since racing cars were no longer required to carry a mechanic, Alfa Romeo built the first single-seater race car. As a first attempt, the 1931 Monoposto Tipo A used a pair of 6-cylinder engines fitted side-by-side in the chassis. As the resulting car was too heavy and complex, Jano designed a more suitable and successful racer called Monoposto Tipo B for the 1932 Grand Prix season. The Tipo B proved itself the winning car of its era, winning straight from its first outing at the 1932 Italian Grand Prix, and was powered with an enlarged version of the 8C engine now at 2,665 cc's, fed through a pair of superchargers instead of a single one. Initially, Alfa Romeo announced that the 8C was not to be sold to private owners, but by autumn 1931 Alfa sold it as a rolling chassis in lungo or quarto form with prices starting at over £1,000. The chassis were fitted with bodies from a selection of Italian coach builders such as Zagato, Carrozzeria Touring, Carrozzeria Castagna, Pininfarina and Baenza, even though Alfa Romeo did make bodies. Some chassis were clothed by coach builders such as Grabber, Weibelhofen and Tuscher of Switzerland and Fgani of France. Alfa Romeo also had a practice of rebodying cars for clients, and some racing vehicles were sold rebodied as road vehicles. Some of the famous first owners include Baroness Maud Thyssen of the Thyssen family, the owner of the aircraft and now scooter company Piaggio Andrea Piaggio, Raymond Summer, and Tazio Nuvolari. Models 1931 8C 2300 The first model was the 1931 8C 2300 feet, a reference to the car's 2.3L engine, initially designed as a racing car, but actually produced in 188 units also for road use. While the racing version of the 8C 2300 Spider, driven by Tazio Nuvolari, won the 1931 and 1932 Targa Florio race in Sicily, the 1931 Italian Grand Prix victory at Monza gave the Monza name to the twin-seater GP car, a shortened version of the Spider. The Alfa Romeo factory often added the name of events won to the name of a car. 1931 8C 2300 Le Mans Type 8C 2300 Typo Le Mans was the sport version of the 8C 2300 feet and it had a successful debut in the 1931 Aryan Cup driven by Henry Birkin. It won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1931, 1932, 1933 and 1934. The 8C2300 Le Mans model on display at the Museo Alfa Romeo was bought by Sir Henry Birkin in 1931 for competition use, but it is not the car in which Birkin and Howe won the 1931 Le Mans 24 Hours. A 1933 8C2300 Le Mans, chassis number 2311201, is part of the permanent collection at the Simeone Foundation Automotive Museum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, U.S. The car was owned by Lord Howe, who campaigned the car in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1934 as well as in 1935 when it set the fastest lap before retiring. 1933 8C2600 in 1933 the supercharged dual overhead cam straight 8 engine, enlarged to 2.6 litres for the Type B, was fitted to the Scuderia Ferrari 8C Monzas. Scuderia Ferrari had become the semi-official racing department of Alfa Romeo, who were no longer entering races as a factory effort due to the poor economic situation of the company. With the initial 215 horsepower of the 2.6 engine, the Monoposto Tipo B racer could accelerate to 60 miles per hour in less than 7 seconds and could eventually reach 135 miles per hour. For 1934 the race engines became 2.9 litres. Tazio Nuvolari won the 1935 German GP at the Nahon Quarter-Ring at the wheel of a 3.2L Type B against the more powerful Silver Arrows from Mercedes-Benz and Auto Union. 1935 Monoposto 8C35 Type C 8 3.8-litre versions, sharing no castings with the earlier blocks, were individually built for racing in 5 months, most being used in the Alfa Romeo Monoposto 8C35 Type C, as raced by Scuderia Ferrari. The 3.8 produced 330 bhp at 5500 rpms, and had 320 lb-aft from 900 rpms to 5500 rpms. It had 15.5-inch drum brakes all round, using Pirelli 5.25 or 5.50x19 tires at the front and 7.00 or 7.50x19 tires at the rear. Though not a match for the big Mercedes and Auto Union on the faster circuits, they came into their own on the tighter circuits and races. In 1936 Type CS fitted with the troublesome V12 did not live up to expectations, and the 3.8 continued to be used. From 1933 Scuderia Ferrari had managed the racing, and the Ferrari prancing horse appeared on the flanks of the Bimotore, but Alfa Corse began to become more active, and Vittorio Jano went at the end of the 1937 season. In 1938 4 Alfa Romeo Type 308 racers were built for the 3-litre class using 8C engines. On September 14, 2013, a former Scuderia Ferrari 8C35, in which Tazio Nuvolari had won the 1936 Competizione, was sold for £5.9 million. A new world record price for any Alfa Romeo. It was sold by the Bornham's auction house in its Goodwood Revival meeting sale in England. The car in question was the ex-Hans Reusch, ex-Dennis Poor car, which had been one of the early stars of racing at the Goodwood Motor Circuit 1948-55. 1935 Bimotore In 1935, to compete with Mercedes-Benz and Auto Union, Enzo Ferrari and Luigi Bazzi built a racer with two 3.2 engines, one in the front and one in the rear, giving 6.3 litres and 540 bhp. The drivetrain layout was unusual. The two engines were connected by separate drive shaft to a gearbox with two input shafts, and two angled output shafts, so each of the rear wheels had its own drive shaft. It could never quite succeed against the Mercedes W25B of Rudolf Caracciola, and was hard on fuel and tires. The gain in speed was offset by increased pit times. On May 12, 1935, two were entered in the Tripoli Grand Prix driven by Nuvolari and Curran, who finished 4th and 5th. Curran managed a second at the following 1935 Avis race. On June 16, 1935, Nuvolari drove a specially prepared Bimotore from Florence to Livorno and set a new speed record 364 km per hour with an average speed of over 323 km per hour. After that it was sidelined in favor of the Type C. It was the first racer to use the bonnet independent trailing arm front suspension. The V12 was under development, but was not race-ready. It was noticed that the Bimotore had a traction advantage on rough ground, so a version of the Bimotore chassis with the independent bonnet front end, and a new independent rear with swing axles with radius rods and a transverse leaf spring was used for the Type C 3.8s. 8C2900 The 8C2900 was designed to compete in sports car races in general and the Mille Miglia in particular. It used the 2.9L version of the 8C engine and was based on the 8C35 Grand Prix racing chassis. As such, it had an inline 8-cylinder 2.9-litre engine using two Roots-type superchargers fed by two updraft Weber carburetors and fully independent suspension with bonnet-type trailing arm suspension with coil springs and hydraulic dampers at front and swing axles with a transverse leaf spring at the rear. The 8C2900A was shown to the public at the 1935 London Motor Show and was advertised for sale there. The engine, with a compression ratio of 6.5 to 1 and a stated power output of 220 bhp at 5300 rpms, was detuned from the Grand Prix racing version. 10 2900s were built, 5 in 1935 and 5 in 1936. Scuderia Ferrari entered 3 8C2900s in the 1936 Mille Miglia and again in the 1937 Mille Miglia. In 1936 they finished in the top three positions, with Marquis Antonio Brivio winning, Giuseppe Farina finishing second, and Carlo Pintacuda finishing third. In 1937 they finished in the top two positions, with Pintacuda winning and Farina finishing second. The third 2900A, driven by Clement Biondetti, did not finish. The 8C2900A also won the 1936 Spa 24 Hours with Raymond Summer and Francesco Severi. The 8C2900B began production in 1937. The 2900B design made some concessions to comfort and reliability. The engine was detuned further, having a compression ratio of 5.75 to 1 and a stated power output of 180 bhp at 5200 rpms. The 2900B chassis was available in two wheelbases, the Corto at 2,799 mm, which was longer than the 2900A's 2,718 mm wheelbase, and the Lungo at 3,000 mm. The wheels of the 2900B had 19-inch rims fitted with 17-inch hydraulic drum brakes. 32 2900BS were built in regular production, 10 in 1937, and 22 in 1938. Another 2900B was assembled from parts in 1941. Most of these cars were bodied by Carrozzeria Touring, although a few were bodied by Pininfarina. An 8C2900 with Pininfarina cabriolet bodywork was auctioned for $4,072,000 by Christie's at Pebble Beach, California. This was the 10th highest price ever paid for a car at auction at the time. 1938 8C2900B Mille Miglia Roadster. In 1938, Alfa Corse, an in-house racing team for Alfa Romeo, took over the activities of Scuderia Ferrari, along with many of their personnel, including Enzo Ferrari. Alfa Corse prepared 4 8C2900B Corto cars for the 1938 Mille Miglia. These used Carrozzeria Touring Superleggera Roadster bodies. 3 of these cars had their engines tuned to give 225 bhp, while the fourth, assigned to Biondetti, had an engine from an Alfa Romeo Type 308 Grand Prix car, which delivered 295 bhp. The cars finished in the top two positions, with Biondetti winning and Pintacuda finishing second after leading the race from Piacenza to Terni where his brakes locked up. The other two 8C2900B Mille Miglia Roadsters did not finish. Farina crashed and Eugenio Siena had a blown engine. Piero Duzio finished third in a privately entered 8C2900A. One of the 2800B Mille Miglia Roadsters later won the 1938 Spa 24 Hours with Pintacuda and Saveri driving. Phil Hill competed in several West Coast United States races in Pintacuda's car in 1951 before driving for Ferrari. 1938 8C2900B Le Mans Speciale. Alfa Corse also prepared and entered a single 8C2900B, chassis number 412033, for the 1938 Le Mans. The car featured a streamlined Cooper copyright body at a time when Le Mans races were almost always open cars. The aerodynamic Cooper copyright was built by Carrozzeria Touring. In 1987, an Italian magazine had the car tested at the Pininfarina wind tunnel, where a CX of 0.42 was measured, down to 0.38 with air intakes closed. The Cooper copyright, driven by Summer and Biondetti, led for most of the race, but tire trouble was then followed by a dropped valve. The car was driven to the pits, but had to retire there. At the time the valve dropped, the Cooper copyright had a lead of more than 160 kilometers over the next car. This was the only time the Cooper copyright was raced by Alfa Corse. After the war, it was entered in minor races under private ownership, was then displayed at the Donington Museum from the 1960s before being added in 1987 to the Alfa Romeo Museum, which now runs it at many events. References. Sources Fusi, Luigi. Alfa Romeo Typo A Monoposto. Milano, Imetigfica. Hill, Phil. Bryant, Thossell, ed. Salon, 1937 Alfa Romeo 82-2900B Touring Spider. Road and Track 40, 170 Euro 176. ISSN 0035-7189. Hull, Peter. Moore, Simon. Vorderman, Don, ed. The Immortal Alfa Romeo 29. Automobile Quarterly 11, 178 Euro 187. LCCN 62-4005. Lombard, Stefan. Most Expensive Collectible Cars Euro Number 10, 1937 Alfa Romeo 8C 2900 inches. Connoisseur's Guide Euro Most Expensive Collectible Cars. Forbes.com. Archived from the original on March 24, 2010. Retrieved February 18, 2012. Menon, Sujatha, ed. Supercars, Classics of Their Time. Quintet Publishing. ISBN 0-7607-6228-7. Moore, Simon. The Immortal 2.9. Seattle, Parkside Publication. ISBN 978-0-9617266-0-7. Moore, Simon. The Legendary 2.3. Seattle, Parkside Publication. Asin B0006 RRSAM. ISBN 9780961726607. Rayburn, Scott. Ferrari Team Alfa races to auction record $9.37 million. Bloomberg. Bloomberg. Archived from the original on September 17, 2013. Retrieved November 14, 2013. Strieber, Andrew. Best of the Best, 1938 Alfa Romeo 8C 2900B wins Pebble Beach Best of Show What.motortrend.com. Archived from the original on July 23, 2012. Retrieved March 12, 2009. Thompson, Jonathan. Scale Plan Series Euro the 1938 Alfa Romeo 8C 2900B Mille Miglia Roadster Euro number 9. Model Car and Track 2, 34 Euro 35, 73. Archived from the original on October 9, 2007. Retrieved January 1, 2007. Vorderman, Don, ed. Living Legends, Alfa Romeo 8C 2900B Mille Miglia Spider. Automobile Quarterly 11, 188 Euro 195. LCCN 62-4005. External links, Alfa Romeo 8C 35. Information on Alfa Romeo 8C35 number 50013. vsronline.com page 3. A modeler's plan website. Featuring Jonathan Thompson's plans for the 1938 Alfa Romeo 8C2900B Mille Miglia Roadster, front, rear, and RH side views, as used in Simon Moore's book, The Immortal 2.9, vsronline.com page 4. The LH side and above views of the above-mentioned plans. The other pages not linked here are readable JPGs of an article on the Mille Miglia Roadster.